Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Panthers, 49ers, Monday Night Football. The last time the Panthers won a Monday Night Football game was 2017. They've played two of them since 2019. And this is also the first time Christian McCaffrey faces his former team since he was traded mid-season in 2022. So, yeah, actually a bit of a fun game. 7.5-point spread. 49ers favorite at home in this one. But the Panthers coming off of a big win, a great 400-plus passing yard game from Bryce Young last time out. Almost a 50-point total in this game. So a lot to dig into. Glad to have you guys here. Hopefully you had a good weekend. We close out week 12 on Monday Night Football action. What's good, brother?
Yeah, interesting Monday night game. Not like the best game on paper, but relatively interesting one. There are parts of it that I'm certainly looking forward to. There's one thing I feel bad that I missed out on relative to tonight's game, which is that you've got Ted McMillan has taken over as the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. And I was looking at his numbers compared to Ibuka's. I was like, oh, I didn't realize McMillan just kind of has the better numbers overall for the year. And coming into the week, McMillan was like 15-1 to win Rookie of the Year, and Ibuka was like minus 200. And now you've got McMillan as about even money to win Rookie of the Year. And I do feel like an idiot that I didn't look closer at the numbers and realize that, because there's a lot of value to be had there. And it's kind of obvious in hindsight comparing some of the numbers between the two of them. So anyway, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Ted McMillan today, because if he has a good game, I wouldn't be surprised if that creates some opportunities where all of a sudden he becomes like minus 150 or minus 200 to win Rookie of the Year. Or the inverse happens where if he struggles tonight or maybe gets hurt or something like that, with Jackson Dart expected back next week, I wouldn't be surprised if Dart could end up being a longer odds person to win Rookie of the Year. So that's just something I'm generally keeping my eye on for tonight.
For sure. Also, you couldn't predict that Baker Mayfield was going to get hurt either, though. Like, I think those odds clearly shifted to, like, Ibuka hasn't been great lately, but the fact that Baker hurt his shoulder yesterday and they don't know how long he's going to be out, and Teddy Bridgewater is not good, that also helps Tedero McMillan's case as well.
Absolutely. But I mean, even then, just looking at, because even if you just look at their numbers up to this point in the season, I didn't realize I just didn't think critically enough to realize how similar their numbers were. And just from that standpoint, it didn't make sense how big of a favorite Ibuka was compared to Ted McMillan when they're the same position.
Yes, sir. Anyway, glad to have you guys here. If you don't mind, as Chad says, atone for your sins this morning. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It's free. And comment down below. Where do we go, man? Who do we captain? Who's the optimal captain on a slate like this? You know, Ricky Pearsall's back, came back last week, was ineffective, but he's back. Tedero McMillan, a great game. Bryce, a good game. Rico Dowdle coming back down to earth a little bit. But yes, as Chad, atone for your sins in the library. Matter of fact, my wife is at the library with the girls right now. There's like some story time there that they do, and then they pick these books out. Yeah. Yes, John, JJ McCarthy, he's terrible, man. That guy stinks. I'm saying it's embarrassing how bad he is. I'm not saying that he's going to be bad forever. You really have no idea. He might not be, but right now he objectively stinks. And there's no, like, I don't care how big of a fan you are. There's no two ways around it.
So the other issue too is, and I'm not going to say Sam Darnold is the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's solid. They were 14-3 with him as a quarterback last year. They make a quarterback change, and they definitely ran hot last year, and maybe the record wasn't totally indicative of how good the team actually was. But they were a contender last year. If you go 14-3 in the regular season, you are a Super Bowl contender going into the playoffs if you have a record like that. And just making this quarterback change has taken them so far out of the mix, and Justin Jefferson is so clearly frustrated by it. The trickle-down effect of this could be they turned a contender into a non-playoff team, and I would not be shocked at all if Justin Jefferson just asks for out in the offseason at this point, if it's McCarthy coming back again next year.
Right, if it's McCarthy coming back. Honestly, I would be surprised if he didn't ask out if McCarthy's coming back. Yeah, pretty bad. MVP Ken, shout out to Shadur. Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. I've never seen anyone throw a screen pass like that.
Jerry Jeudy also had one of the dumbest fumbles I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if you saw that play where Sanders had two really good throws yesterday. One of them, Jerry Jeudy, was also just wide open on, but it still was a good throw. Gets the ball downfield, maybe like 30 yards in the air to Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy in the open field with nobody really around him, slows down, just like jumps for no reason, and while he's in the air gets stripped. It was the weirdest. It was the dumbest fumble I've seen in a while, other than, like an Adonai Mitchell sort of fumble. I mean, like a fumble that it was just in the open field like that. It was insanely stupid.
Yep, not good. And the Browns still won because they sacked Geno Smith 10 times.
Dude. Myles Garrett might break the sack record by like 6 sacks this year.
He's the best. He's the best player in the league, man. It's like undeniable at this point. They fired the Raiders fired Chip Kelly today too. By the way, Chip Kelly is gone, and the Giants followed their defensive coordinator. Ken, I know I'm just busting your balls, dude. Look, here's what I'd say, Ken. I have no issues with playing Shadur Sanders over Dylan Gabriel because Sanders at least could flash some upside, where Dylan Gabriel is a poor man's game manager, which is a crazy thought. So I have no issues with it. Also, what does Quinshawn Judkins have, like 5 direct snap, Wildcat touchdowns this year?
A couple of them yesterday.
Yeah, 2 more yesterday. Also, the Eagles, just embarrassing fashion. I bet the Cowboys too. And then the Eagles go up 21-0, and I go, well, that was a bad bet. And then we saw it happen, and everything unraveled. But everyone's like, Laffy, what do you think about that? I was like, I don't know, dude. I thought the Cowboys were going to win that game before it happened. Also, can I tell you one crazy live bet I had yesterday?
Hit me.
It was live, but it was like after the first drive. I'm watching Baker Mayfield talk to the sideline reporter before the game, like you know how they do it right before the game, right before kickoff. So what do you got to work on? He's like, I just got to run more. He's like, when the opportunities are there, I just have to take off. I was like, oh, so he just put the Easter egg in. He's telling us he's going to run more today, and his number's at 13.5. So I just went and hammered a 2-unit play on 13.5. He had 19 on the first 2 drives. That was a wild one, man. Like, to think, like, no joke, it was just very weird that he's telling you right there, I'm going to run more today. He's outright saying he's going to run more. I thought that the books, no joke, would adjust to that after seeing significant, tickets come in there, but they never did.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen that interview. There are so many ways to get edges in betting, and clearly that's one right there. Now, in hindsight, maybe he regrets that because he's injured now, Baker Mayfield.
But he heard it on a Hail Mary.
So it also the play, at least from what I could tell, it seemed really weird because if this is actually the play that it seemed like where he was wincing, somebody like kind of bumped him. It wasn't even like he got hit all that hard on the play.
Yeah, it looked to me like they got part of the hand on his follow through. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. There are, like, in my head, Greg, I'm going, is this dumb of me to do that based on what he's saying? But it's kind of like sometimes what they're saying is what they're saying. And they were coming off a loss, and they were still missing players. Like, he's probably just going to run. And he did.
That stuff is certainly worth paying attention to. It's like you and I talked about this. I'm pretty sure it was on the Friday show when we were talking about Trey McBride. Last year at the tail end of the year, you and I were betting Trey McBride to score a touchdown because he had this super long stretch of receptions without scoring a touchdown. He had an NFL record for most receptions in a row without having scored a touchdown. And Kyler Murray was saying, like, hey, we need to get this guy a touchdown. We're drawing up plays from in the red zone. And then you and I were like, hey, we should be betting Trey McBride to score a touchdown based on this information. And that's what happened. They just forced the ball to him in the red zone at the end of last season. So there's certainly things like that. A lot of narratives are noise, but if you could logically talk yourself through why it actually has value or why it's more likely to happen than what the odds are, like the McBride touchdown or like you were seeing there with Baker Mayfield, then yeah, that's value.
Absolutely. And it turns out all they actually needed to do was sign Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
To get Trey McBride a touchdown. All right, let's get into it. Before we do, Coco McGill says Winston needs a permanent job somewhere. Brother, don't get ahead of yourself. This is Groundhog's Day, man. He's gonna have games like this, and then Jameis Winston becomes Winston again. But he is fun. He's a good guy to have in this league, just like Joe Flacco. You know, they have those games, and then they come back down to earth. And Peters won the $5 flea flicker Sunday Night Football last night. Second showdown win ever, not a current Stokastic member due to cost, but I appreciate all you guys do here on YouTube. Split the pot with 2 Stokastic members. Congrats, man. And I've told you a million times, we'll tell you later, you can get the Sims for free, even if the original cost is too much for you. So let's do it. Oh, and Greg, I posted that live Baker bet to Tails as well. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I posted it to Tails. Got that in there, and it was still 13 after I posted it, which I was happy about. That's the cool thing about live betting football is you can actually give people some time. Whereas with basketball, it becomes a little bit more difficult sometimes. Ready to get into this?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. So 7.5 point spread here. And as of now, 54% exposure to Christian McCaffrey. Is that at the captain spot?
Yeah, so I started with the captain. So the reason I brought up the captain spot here to start is when we first introduced the game, you had said, who's the best player to roster at captain? So I had pulled this up and kind of forgotten about it right now because we got sidetracked to some other conversations. But there's a couple of different conversations to be had here. The question that you had initially asked is who is the optimal captain? The answer, if you're just looking from a projection standpoint for cash games, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. And even in our Sims, we're seeing that despite 30% ownership going to Christian McCaffrey, the Sims are actually pushing him quite a bit more than that, with him showing him up in more than half of the lineups. There's definitely going to be some contrarian options that you and I should be talking about that we'll try to work through. But Christian McCaffrey, he looks outstanding in the flex. He looks outstanding in the captain, and he just projects for so many fantasy points, which we've talked about this so many times. It just makes sense given what his workload is.
Yeah, it's nuts. I bet last week the over on Brian Robinson rushing yards, and he got there, but he actually got there because of garbage time, and it was the final drive. Like they were up by a lot of points. He did have like 6 carries before that, but they were up a ton of points, and they still let Christian McCaffrey handle the entire drive on their second to last drive of the game, up by like 20 points or something, Greg. So he is just, getting an insane amount of opportunities here. And you're right, it's hard to get away from that. Now, he's also facing his former team for the first time since they traded him 3 years ago. That's just a little over 3 calendar years ago. I think it was October 20th. It was mid-season. But no, he looks very good. There's no doubt about it. And I'll show you something else here, Greg. Let me just pull my screen up for a second. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull up the top single game and showdown top plays tool, which I hope you guys are using if you're Sims members, because we have more than just the Sims out there. And this is one of those tools that can be super, super helpful. There's a lot of people before we ever had the Sims that use this tool religiously every single day. But if you look at Christian McCaffrey, this top percentage here is the probability that he's going to be the top overall player on the slate, 50% here, 31% captain ownership. But how about this, dude? 37% optimal captain. He is positively leveraged by 6% at captain with 31% captain ownership. I mean, to me, that is not something you see very often at all.
No, and that's why when you guys saw just running the Sims, he shows up in more than half of the lineups despite being 31% owned. And one thing you do see very frequently in our data is on main slates, we're usually getting overweight to the chalk in the Sims. But for showdown slates, in the multiplier spots, it usually ends up coming in underweight to the chalk in the multiplier spot. So not saying like it'll outright avoid it entirely, but something like Josh Allen in the Bills primetime game, he was expected to have, it was like nearly 50% MVP ownership on FanDuel. Then DraftKings, he was pulling like 30% projected ownership in the captain spot. And he was showing up in like 15 to 20% of lineups in the Sims. If there's somebody who's this highly owned, it's kind of rare for the one game slates because of the uniques and the dupes and whatnot that the tools recommend being overweight to somebody this popular in the multiplier spot. But that is what's happening with McCaffrey today.
And it makes a lot of sense. it makes a lot of sense to get to this much McCaffrey. Usually when you and I talk about this, and you kind of just mentioned it right now, there are instances where you get underweight to a guy that's that popular. But as you just mentioned, there are like the volume on a guy like McCaffrey is so significant. Now, does that mean that, George Kittle or hell, even like Juwan Jennings or Pearsall or Tedoroa McMillan or Rico Dowdle couldn't have that type of game? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that the path for McCaffrey to get there over everybody else is so significant, man. And it's amazing for me to see 37% captain, optimal captain, and 31% captain ownership. You very, very rarely see that. The only times we used to see that is when Lamar Jackson was rushing for like 80 yards per game, Greg. And he was just getting insane ownership at captain, massive captain optimal score. But yeah, I don't know really how much I want to change of that. We'll see when we run the Sims again as we update everything throughout the day where Christian McCaffrey's captain exposure comes in. But yeah, I mean, 18-6. Oh, and one other thing to mention here. I think just considering the fact that he's 12-4, that's expensive, but it's not egregiously expensive knowing what he does week in and week out with his touch counts.
Yeah, I mean, the floor's super high. And we did get this question in chat from Chris Longo here, which I think is worth bringing up. He said, is there a chance for CMC to bust tonight? Of course. Like, there's a wide range of players could get hurt. All different sorts of things could happen. The second part to me isn't, he said he might be due for a mediocre game. Just because he's been good a lot of games this year, it doesn't mean that he's due for a good, bad game or whatever. They're just kind of independent events. The reason, though, that Christian McCaffrey has had so many decent to very good games this year is just because of the workload. The guy gets, last week was a blowout. They won 41-22. So he only gets 18 touches in that game. But generally, as long as the game is competitive, and by the way, if the game isn't competitive tonight, that impacts all of the high-end players anyway, because it's a one-game slate. But in competitive games, you're getting 25 to 30 touches from Christian McCaffrey. And that just makes it really hard for him to have poor games.
John mentions Brian Robinson Jr. I don't think Brian Robinson Jr. is a crazy play at all. As a matter of fact, I mean, this is a guy who, while he is going to clearly play second fiddle to Christian McCaffrey, there is an opportunity for work here. They are 7.5-point home favorites. He has gotten some opportunities in the red zone. He's scored in 2 of his last 3 weeks. Yeah, it's not the craziest idea whatsoever. Now, is it a very risky play? Yeah, because Brian Robinson's probably going to get anywhere between, I'd say, 5 to 8 touches in this game, which at 3,400, it's not great. It's not terrible. Certainly don't intend on playing him at captain. The only path there is if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt mid-game. But yeah, I think Brian Robinson at flex is actually fine. And if you were to play him with Christian McCaffrey, I see nothing all that insane about going to Brian Robinson there. He has, last I looked, a 25.5 rushing yards prop. If I had to guess, he's probably like plus 300 to score a touchdown, plus 350. Yeah, he's 4-1 on FanDuel. So again, at that price point, not crazy, plus 390 on DraftKings. You're not going to get excited about Brian Robinson Jr., Greg, but he's there and he's on a pretty good offense as a big favorite. I don't think it's crazy, but we are very, very much underweight to the field right now.
The biggest problem with Brian Robinson is he's very popular relative to the other cheap options. So right now, Sim's getting us underweight to the field on Brian Robinson, but yeah, the field is getting there. He's 21% owned. I'm kind of curious, who are the players in that price range who are showing up in lineups in the flex? So, all right, interesting. Our data, here's what our data likes. Jalen Coker. Okay, I can get behind that. Panthers defense, that is a much more difficult click for me. Also getting to a little bit more of Jatavian Sanders than Brian Robinson. Sanders at $2,800. So
that's my guy. I think that's a good spot this week too, or tonight. Jatavian
Yeah,
Sanders.
so options in this price range, those are all the ones that we're currently getting to more of than Brian Robinson. So we'll see what things look like closer to lock. But as of right now, the tools do like Brian Robinson the least of all these players relative to ownership.
And it does make sense because it's in a sense like low quality touches, just because, it's on the ground. You're not racking up PPR points or anything like that. But, it's fine. Jatavian Sanders to me looks pretty decent. He's not running the type of routes, the routes at the rate you'd love. He only ran 20 routes last week. He was targeted on 4 of those routes though, which isn't terrible. And he's catching a lot of the passes thrown his way. So 20% targets per route run last week. He caught all 4 of them. I think he's actually pretty talented. He's very athletic. This is the type of spot where I could see him being decent. At that price point, to me, sub 3K, I do actually like him here. I like him more than a, DeMarcus Robinson. I do like him more than Tommy Tremble. I don't really have I don't really have an issue getting there at all. And the other thing about the San Francisco team that I think we should probably talk about if we're going to go through pass catchers here, most notably Bryce Young coming off of a crazy game, right? I mean, a really impressive game from Bryce Young and a come from behind win against the Falcons, who are just, I mean, who the hell knows what to make of that team. But the 49ers, Greg, just allowed Jacoby Brissett to complete the most passes in NFL history in a single game. Now, you could argue that they shifted the way they play defense and all of that stuff, being up by a lot of points. The one thing you can't argue, though, is that they have been good in the passing game. They are dead last in sacks in the league. They've only have 12 sacks on the year. They're 31st in pass rush win rate. They do not generate a lot of pressure, and Bosa's done for the year, which is really a huge loss for them. They're allowing 7.1 yards per attempt, which is like, 10th worst or so. But what about the fact that they're allowing the second highest completion percentage in the league behind only the Miami Dolphins, and 21 passing touchdowns, which is 6th most in the league. So they don't get interceptions. They have the second fewest behind only the Jets. They have the fewest sacks in all of football, and they allow the second highest completion percentage. That kind of is in Bryce Young's wheelhouse in a game like today. And they've become a pass funnel defense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the loss of Nick Bosa is big. Fred Warner also out for the year. In my opinion, those are their 2 best defensive players, at least coming into the season. So massive loss for them on the front 7. That's definitely inhibited the defense a little bit here. One other thing that I wanted to bring up just on Brian Robinson that I was thinking about while you were talking too is we were talking a little bit about narratives earlier, and Humboldt Parker had put this into the YouTube chat when Christian McCaffrey has a long run and then Robinson will come in and vulture him near the goal line. Good luck. This is actually one of those situations where I think that McCaffrey is so much more likely to get the goal line touches just because he's playing against his former team, and I think they want to give him those scores. I would be pretty surprised if Robinson is vulturing McCaffrey today for that reason.
Yeah, that is actually a very good point, and one I considered as well. I actually went and looked at McCaffrey's touchdown odds, which you just can't really bet them, Greg, unless maybe we go McCaffrey 2+ touchdowns or something like that. I don't know, but I'm with you. I don't think against his former team, unless he rips off like an 80-yard run and he's down at the 1 and they just simply need to give him a breather, that I could see that being the case. But no, I'm with you. I do not think you're going to see much vulturing in a game like today. You and I aren't huge narrative guys, but just like I was talking about with that Baker Mayfield live bet, or you're notorious for doing this type of stuff where you can actually take coach or player speak, and if you're able to decipher it correctly, it can be pretty impactful. But on a day like today, going up against his former team, it's not like Christian McCaffrey isn't good. They clearly want to get him the ball as much as humanly possible. So yeah, I would assume here that he is going to get the first, second, and third crack at those, unless the game gets out of control. So we will see. Anyway, Jim Parrish with a super chat here. Thank you, Jim. What do you make? Actually, do you want to read this? Do you want to read that super chat off so I can put it on the screen?
Yeah. So we've got here. What do you think about this lineup? McCaffrey, Purdy, Kittle, Juszczyk, and then Matt Gay and Xavier Legette. So
I already ran it. I want you to guess.
All right. So there's two things here. First off, I don't have any issue with the lineup itself. There's nobody I'll look at that and be like, oh, that's terrible. I don't necessarily love playing Kyle Juszczyk. Let me see if he's showing up in any lineups. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll take that back. At $1,400, actually showing up in 25% of lineups in the Sims. It is pretty hard to get a lot of lineups that sim well in the single lineup sims for showdown slates. They're just harder to find value on the main slates. But now that I looked at our data and I see that we actually like Kyle Juszczyk a lot, I'll say it's a positive one.
All right, what do you think?
Oh, I have no clue. I'll just say 20%.
All right, here we go. The great reveal. Jim Parrish, thank you for the super chat. Here is what we've got. Ready, set, go. 63.7% with the 5-1. There you go, Jim. That's a solid looking lineup, man. I actually don't mind that at all. If I want to run it back, in a 5-1 to run it back because you have to, it would be a pass catcher too. It's a unique build. I don't think a lot of people are going to get there. So, yeah, there you have it. Almost, what was it, 65% or something like that. So, good stuff, Jim.
Yeah, I didn't realize that our data likes Juszczyk that much more than all the other punts. I was just looking at it at first glance and being like, I don't know, does the lineup have to have Juszczyk in it? And then I go and look, and of all of the players that are below $2,000 in the Sims, we only have more than 5% exposure to Juszczyk, and we're getting him in 25% of lineup. So if you are looking to punt, apparently our data does like Juszczyk much more than any of the other cheap options. It's always hard to kind of disseminate amongst these guys where it's like, none of them have that big of a role. Like you got Jake Tunges, who was relevant when Kittle was out, but not as much anymore. Then you got like Luke Farrell, Jimmy Horn, just a lot of guys who don't, like Kyle Juszczyk too, doesn't get a ton of touches. But amongst all those options, I usually just lean on our data for whoever it spits out the most of, because how opinionated could be on guys who are projected for like 1.4 and 1.5 fantasy points. But yeah, right there, Kyle Juszczyk, he looks like they got a punt with.
Definitely. Chris, what's the lowest simulated ROI on the single lineup generator that's worth playing? I mean, positive, in my opinion.
1%.
Yeah, if it's a lineup you like and it's positive, that's why Greg and I always tell people, don't chase like the 150. If I run something and it's 30% and it's a lineup going into it that I really liked, I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to change it at all. So yeah. Can you go back to captain for a second so I can? Humboldt told me the other day to watch this interview with a fella named Robert Beaver, right? Who massacred the entirety of his family back in 2015, Greg. He said, you have to watch this. So I was assembling a vanity for my 2-year-old after coming home from the high school football game. There were 8 teams left in the state. So we went there. It's across the street from my house. I went with my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, come home, had a couple drinks. I'm putting this together, and I watched this hour-long interview with this. When I tell you this will chill you to the bone, Greg. Robert Beaver. What do you know about Robert Beaver?
I'm looking up the Robert Beaver right now. He sounds like a real jerk. If that's
this guy seems like a real jerk. I was hoping you would go there. Yeah, messed up stuff. Humble, I'll do you one better. Go look up their house. It looks like the type of house where a massacre would happen. And oddly enough, it's in Oklahoma. In this same town, there was another massacre larger than that, like 3 years after it. Spooky stuff. Dusty, thoughts on Robert Beaver in the captain spot?
He might kill your lineup.
Yeah. Dowdle at captain, Brock Purdy, Tedero McMillan, Bryce Young. The point I was getting to, was Greg though, was that I could absolutely see a Panthers wide receiver or pass catcher being in the captain spot today if it's not Christian McCaffrey, because once again, this really has been a true pass funnel defense for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I just rattled off like 8 or 9 different stats where they're towards the bottom of the league. And it's not like they're going out there and they're giving up 5 touchdown passes every game, but they are giving up like these efficiency metrics. And on DraftKings, you're talking full point PPR, and bonuses and this and that. It really is somewhat appealing to me. And Tedero McMillan is good. He's expensive, but not overly expensive. You're paying what, $14,000 at the captain spot. That's really not that bad. 9,400 at the flex. And this is not just me taking away last game and being like, oh man, you got to go to Tedero McMillan. Look what happened to the Niners. Look what he did last week against Atlanta. But it does stand the reason that a rookie is going to continue to improve and improve his chemistry and his rapport with his quarterback over the course of the year. The Niners haven't gotten a lot of pressure. I actually think he would be my second favorite captain on the slate.
It's so tough because I saw somebody in chat earlier had asked if we'd be willing to play 100% McCaffrey in the captain spot. I wouldn't go 100%, but there is a part of this too where you look through the potential options in the multiplier spot, and they are pretty thin. Like, there aren't that many guys who I really love to think have a lot of upside in the multiplier spot. And then there's the other part of this too, is if you go cheap, like what are you even going cheap for, right? Because in the flex, it's not like there's so many great high-end options either. Like I don't feel like I have to get Rico Dowdle and Brock Purdy at 10K plus into a bunch of lineups. They're fine, but I don't feel like I have to jam them. So I really do understand why Christian McCaffrey shows up in as many lineups as he does. Brock Purdy also is way overowned in the captain spot at 18%. He's got limited rushing upside as is when you also consider he's got the foot. Like, how much do they want him to run in a very winnable game against the Panthers? And considering that he's missed almost the entire season with a foot injury. So now I'm trying to figure out who else I like. I tend to agree with you. Ted McMillan looks like one. Maybe Ricky Pearsall, just because he's such an unknown. Like, this could certainly be a spot where we haven't seen very many big games out of him this year. He's also been hurt. Maybe he just doesn't really play a ton. But if we're looking at range of outcomes and trying to find out who's lower owned with some upside, I think that's where maybe I'd gravitate towards Ricky Pearsall. We have only seen him play in 5 games this year. He did go for over 100 yards in 2 of them. So just trying to make a case for somebody who's low owned to be different with. And I think for me, that's going to be Pearsall 3% owned as I'm talking through it out loud.
Okay. I could see it.
I don't feel great about it, but I don't really know who to recommend as a low owned option that is upside otherwise.
No, that's why I like Tedero McMillan quite a bit, honestly. I think actually too, though, you look at JC Horn, who has been one of those guys that is, a very, very consistent corner. The one time he got beat this year pretty bad was against Olave, but it was also he tripped and fell, and Olave caught like a 60-yard touchdown. The Panthers secondary has not actually been that bad. They've allowed on the season 6 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. That's pretty crazy, right? That is the second fewest touchdown passes allowed to receivers in the league. They're tied down there with the Houston Texans. You want to know who's okay? So the Denver Broncos have allowed 2, which is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous that they've allowed 2 receiving touchdowns to opposing receivers. That doesn't even make sense. But what about the fact, though, that the Bengals have allowed the second fewest? This is why I loved Hunter Henry yesterday. It was all over Hunter Henry. And I'm going to play Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely together on Thanksgiving, and I'm going to win $1 million. But the Carolinas, I actually lean, and this isn't to say that Brock Purdy and the offense can't touch him up a little bit, but I like George Kittle at the captain spot here. Middle of the field, Carolina's liable to get banged up a little bit.
Kittle's another one too, where he's so hard to get a read on because he's one of the best tight ends at everything in the NFL. they just choose to utilize him in different ways on a week-to-week basis, where like the first game he came back from his, I don't even remember. Oh, hamstring injury. That's what it was. So he had a hamstring injury. First game he comes back, 0 receptions, but he was massively impactful in the game, just blocking for Christian McCaffrey, made a massive difference. And then you see a game like 2 weeks ago, he's targeted 9 times. He catches all 9 of them for 84 yards and a touchdown. He's so good, George Kittle, and he's so versatile that they could either just be like, hey, we're just using you as like an extra offensive lineman today, or he could be their best option in the red zone. He could be a big playmaker over the middle of the field. There's so many different things that George Kittle does that also gives him a really wide range of outcomes. So I could understand that logic as well. Like he's certainly live for 1 or 2 touchdowns on any given game.
Yeah, absolutely. They like him in the red zone. We had someone say Bryce Young, dark horse captain. I think so too. I do. I think Bryce Young is viable at the captain spot. So while we all love Christian McCaffrey here, and there's, no reason not to have some interest, a ton of interest in McCaffrey at the captain spot, we'd be doing you guys a disservice to not at least talk about, the other guys out there if he's going to be getting as much ownership as he is. I'll point out again, though, if you tuned in late, if you're listening in podcast form, you missed this. By the way, hit us with a rating and review if you don't mind. But McCaffrey still is positively leveraged in our top single game and showdown plays tool, which shows you that. It's essentially simulating the field or the contest the same way you would see within the Sims, just showing you a little bit of different data. He's still positively leveraged. Common Pennies, I'm dead serious about the Bryce Young captain, but you should be. I mean, he's not expensive for a quarterback. He's really not expensive. Are we getting, is that 0.7% ownership at the captain spot?
So I don't like Bryce Young as a captain.
I do.
This is just for me, just standard practice. If I don't think a quarterback is rushing upside, I'm not playing them in the captain spot, just because, in my opinion, if there's a big Bryce Young game, I just think he's destined to be outscored by one of his pass catchers, most likely Tet McMillan, which would just make it really difficult for Bryce Young to be the winning captain or MVP, depending which site it is you're playing on. Bryce Young only has 1 game with more than 10 rushing yards the entire season. That was the very first game of the year. So overall for the year, he's got 83 rushing yards now, and that's very heavily weighted towards game 1 of the season. 5 carries for 40 yards. And like I said, no games with more than 10 yards since then on the ground. So that's just making him a hard click for me in the multiplier spot. I'm more in line with the Sims here. If I don't think a QB is rushing upside, I'm not playing him in the captain almost always.
Fair enough. I get it. But also, the 2 times he has had good games this year, the one, he was the highest scoring player on the Panthers, and last week he had 35 and Tedero McMillan had 36. So, yeah. Anyway, what is that? Megal Rocks? Can you guys explain why the Sims get to 54% Christian McCaffrey captain, but the single game tool says he should be around 37% captain? It's a wide gap.
Yeah, so for what the single lineup Sim is not saying he should be 37% owned. That's not what the tool is saying at all. What the tool is saying is that in simulations, he showed up in winning lineups or optimal lineups 37% of the time. And optimal lineup means the absolute highest scoring possible lineup. So he's in the optimal lineup 37% of the time compared to the 31% ownership. But think of it this way. I'll use a really extreme example. If a player is expected to be 1% owned and they're going to be optimal in the captain spot 10% of the time, it doesn't mean you want to play them 10% of the time in the captain spot. You want to be way overweight to that mark, because think about the kind of leverage that you're getting there. Same thing on an NBA DFS slate. If a player is going to be, or on any main DFS slate, I should say, whether it be, I don't know why I said NBA, any main NFL or NBA slate, if somebody is going to be higher owned than what their optimal odds are, it doesn't mean you play them exactly what their optimal odds are. You want to play more of them than that because you want to give yourself more opportunities with players in that lineup spot.
Exactly. So yeah, we're a little different there. I think I just like the Carolina passing game probably a little bit more today, given how, you know, given how this is kind of a pass funnel defense. But then, we have to have a good amount of Bryce Young and flex, right?
Yeah, let's see. We have him. Where is he?
Only
Coming in underweight
28.
to him there too. Our data just doesn't. So here's where I would be a little bit different. And I have to build out lineups and see how everything looks. But like I have no issues at all with Bryce Young in the flex spot. It's more just the captain, where it's like, what do I think his odds are being the absolute highest scoring player in the game? And that's where I'm a little down on him because of his lack of rushing upside. But at $9,200, I have much less issue with him in the flex spot.
Yeah. All right. What do you make then of our highest exposed flex players, where you've got McCaffrey? We pretty much have him in almost every lineup. We have Rico Dowdle as our what? Can you sort by exposure on flex?
Yeah, so by exposures, we're getting the most of Purdy here. The big surprise here is the Panthers defense, where at $3,600, we're getting them in a ton of lineups.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, me either as of right now. Maybe as I'm building lineups later, my opinion could change on that, because we do have a fairly shitty projection on them. We only been projected for 5.4 fantasy points, and that's still enough for them to show up in a bunch of lineups. So my knee-jerk reaction is like, I don't want anything to do with the Panthers defense. But if we do have them projected this low and they still show up in a bunch of lineups, then maybe I should reconsider a little bit. But either way, 40% is a lot and more than I want.
Yeah, it's too much for me. I don't really have much interest in that. Look at this. All right. I assume it's triple G's. Could be triple eggs. Hey, I took down the 50-cent mini max for 15K. That's insane. That is a huge contest. Appreciate your help from the whole Stokastic team. $75 in, 15 out, right on time for the holidays. That's amazing, man. Congrats. Big win there. And
same birthday as my brother, but unless that number is just random. My brother's birthday is also July 12th.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Who knows? Maybe he'll let us know. Are there any, can we sort by, because like I'm looking at some of this and I see, all right, Christian McCaffrey at flex, Purdy at flex, a lot of that, Rico Dowdle, George Kittle, all of these guys make sense. We don't really need to belabor the point here. Bryce Young, 28, I'd like to, or 20, I can't tell, 28, 26. I'd like to get a little bit more of that. But can we look at some of these cheap guys to see where the exposure is coming to? Because from everything I see right now, it's the Panthers that are opening it up. What I'd like to do, and Kyle Juszczyk, is look at that and then see if we can just set a exposure cap on the Panthers, even just put them at like 10%. Not saying you guys have to, but to see what that changes and who we get more of and who we get less of as a result. I think this will be helpful for everybody to kind of see what it looks like if they have less of the defensive exposure.
All right. So we just limited the Panthers to 10% exposure. I'm just going to sort by salary here and look on the low end. All right. So on the low end, we got a little bit more of Kyle Juszczyk. It actually didn't change that much on the low end because we still only have 4% of Brian Robinson. We've got the same, about 17% of Jatavian Sanders. 28% of Juszczyk. I think we had like 24% before. So this actually didn't change anything on the low end. I wonder if it changed McCaffrey exposure in the captain. Nope.
No.
So what did it? I mean, like this had to change. Okay, so Purdy. Okay, so we have a lot of Matt Gay now. We had a good amount of Matt Gay before as well, but we got to more of the 49ers defense now. I don't think there's any. Jalen Coker was in like 20% of lineups now, or no, actually, he might have been 26 before. I don't think it changed any one thing a lot. It just a bunch of players got put into like 2-3 more lineups, not like one big gainer all of a sudden.
Yeah, it really just spread things around. Okay, because I assume both of us will probably limit Panthers a little bit. I'm not sure we want 40%, right?
For sure, that is a. I'll say with 99% certainty, I do not want to have 40% of the Panthers defense.
By the way, yesterday, we had somebody hit us up earlier on today's show saying yesterday, Greg, he took down a tournament and isn't a Sims user yet, but watches all of the shows, and shout out to him again. But you mentioned because of the cost. And I would like to point out that the cost can be, you can circumnavigate. Actually, that's not, you can circumvent. Circumnavigate would be odd. You can circumvent the cost of the Sims and grab it for free. Okay. Millie winner last week, some big wins this week. The guy who won the Millie yesterday, Greg, reached out. He DM'd me and said he DM'd me. Actually, I saw it this morning as we were doing the show, saying that he watches all of the shows. And thank you for the shout out over on the Sims. I don't think he's a sub, but he says he watches all of our shows. He DM'd me that. So that was really cool. But yeah, just an insane amount of wins we've had. And these people, more specifically, they got the Sims for free. These guys got the Sims for free. And I know I already saw people in chat today saying they got the Sims for free. You know, whether it's signing up through Onyx, whether it's signing up through Caesars, whatever it may be, right here, the link in the description. If you're on your phone, tap the description. If you're on your, desktop, whatever it may be, click it. This will pop up where it says sign up with our partners. Just choose any of these down here and click claim offer, right? That's the way we can track you. Click claim offer. It'll take you to the book, or it'll take you to a sweepstakes book like Onyx, which is available in 40 plus states. Not to mention, you spend 10 on Onyx, you get 100 in bonus picks, which is huge. One of the best offers out there. Or these pick'em sites for those of you in non-legal betting states. Better, Sleeper, Underdog. Look at that. Pick Six, sponsor of today's show. Click that. Deposit, minimum deposit. It's like $5 or $10. After you do that, all you have to do is place a bet or set a pick'em lineup, right? Like the highers or lowers. And when that settles, take screenshots of that welcome email and the first settled bet. That's it. Send it to us at support@stokastic.com, not to the books. They don't care. Send it to us and say, hey, I signed up. Here's the kicker, Greg. I signed up on Onyx, Fanatics, and Better. 3 of them. Can I get 3 free months of the NFL? Can I get 2 free months of NFL Sims, which will run you all the way up to like the end of the playoffs, essentially? Yeah, it would, because there's a week in between the Super Bowl. Run you all the way up to the end of the postseason. And can I get a month of NBA sprinkled in there as well? Here are the books I signed up with. Here's the screenshots. So you take anywhere from $15 to $30, depending on the deposit bonus. That's for all 3, assuming you wanted to do $3, right? And that's 3 months. Each of these months is like $130 if you were to pay out of pocket to get the core monthly. Or you could do one, and then when that expires, I had this question the other day, you can just pop back in, sign up for another one, repeat the process until you're all out of options. And we're constantly trying to add more options onto this list as well. So yeah, if you're looking to get in, looking to have the success that so many Stokastic subscribers have had this year, I'm telling you right now, that is the way to do it. And it's at virtually no cost to you and a tiny bit of your time on any given day.
Yeah, and people ask us, pretty frequently, which you bring up, Lofty, is people say, what promos do you guys have going on? This is the best promo that we have going on all the time. We don't know how long it's going to be around for because a lot of it is outside of our control. It's whether these books do or don't want to participate. People will message me and be like, hey, I saw this book in and they're not there anymore. What happened? They pulled out. They didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So we're going to keep this going for as long as we possibly can. And this is the best promo that we have on the site.
No question, man. That's how you do it. You ever have questions? Greg and I are easily reachable, and you can hit us up there as well on Twitter or in the comments, whatever it may be. So I want to go back to something real quick here with you. It does once again appear, and I'm surprised by this, that that a lot of the value on this slate is kind of going by the wayside, and I get that we're getting this some use check. He's very, very cheap. And usually when you see something like that, because Juszczyk will get, he's had 2 targets in 4 straight games. That's good enough. He doesn't really get any rushing attempts. Once in a while, they'll do something weird at the goal line. But as you pointed out, less likely for something like that to happen today with Christian McCaffrey facing his former team. I don't think that's lost on anyone, even if they say it doesn't matter. But like Renfro, J.C. Horn, it goes to show that there aren't really that many value plays that stand out on a slate like this. The only thing I'll say before we move on, and get your thoughts here too, is that I would be a little bit more prone to probably spread things around where we've got like, almost 30% Jalen Coker, almost 30% Kyle Juszczyk. I'd probably want to get guys like Jatavian Sanders up a little bit there. Probably Brian Robinson Jr. exposure up a little bit in a spot like that. Not saying you have to. You certainly don't. But I do think there are a couple of guys down there that I'm getting a little bit less exposure than I'd like and a little more than I'd like on a few other guys who are essentially like 1 to 3 touch per game players in a sea of those guys down in that price range.
Yeah, I've got it sorted right here by the lowest salaries. And there are just a handful of guys who are really cheap, whether it be like, Luke Farrell or Sky Moore or Tommy Tremble. There are a handful of these guys we have like 1 to 5 to 6% exposure to. It's just there isn't a consensus on who the best one is outside of Kyle Juszczyk on the low end from our data, and it just kind of mixes and matches and spreads these guys around.
Pretty much. Yep. What else do you want to look at before we get out of here?
We could look at some of the most duped lineups too. That's usually something that people ask from us. And what? Oh, you know what? I just realized that never mind. This is actually just really. I can't believe how few dupes there are for this late.
Did you run this on a 10,000 field?
No, it's 50,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What's the most duped lineup? If you could zoom in a tiny bit here.
Yeah, so the most duped lineup, it is George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Jatavian Sanders, Kyle Juszczyk, and Rico Dowdle.
Interesting. No McCaffrey at captain in that one. The most duped McCaffrey captain is McCaffrey, Purdy, Kittle, Jalen Coker, Juwan Jennings, and Kyle Juszczyk. That's a 5-1 San Fran.
So we did update ownership while we were on this show. I do wonder if that would change it a little bit in terms of some of the most duped lineups. I feel pretty strongly that would be the case, that we have that ownership update. So maybe this isn't the most reliable right now. I'm fairly certain there's going to be higher dupe lineups that show up later.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, you guys have any bets you like for today? I am recording my betting video directly after this. And there's a couple spots that I'm targeting. I'm going to do the 50% boost, 50% same game parlay boosted on Bet365. I'll post that up to Tails. We'll have a side potentially for this game, but a few props that I'm eyeing up today. Make sure to come check them out over on Tails. We'll have a bonus perfect lineup for the perfect lineup video posted over on Tails as well. You guys already know all of that is free. And that is one of the huge benefits that you'll find is you go in there, you get free bets, you get free DFS content, all of that, right? You can turn on notifications. So whenever anything gets posted, you know exactly where it is and you know exactly when, so you can tail it with one click as well. We've shown you the tail feature where you click tail and it just pulls all of the sports books up for you. You don't have to manually insert anything into your bet slips. Like with Greg doing the bankroll challenge over there. He's posting a lot of bets and the odds move because you're going to get CLV on those. They move quickly. But if you're getting notifications, you can bet them almost as quickly as he is betting them and get in before it does without having to find that bet ever on your preferred sports book. So I look forward to this, Greg. Should be a fun game. I got to go do a little bit more research, dig into these bets. Hopefully you guys come tail and we'll have some fun. Maybe make some money today as well.
Before we go, we did get a super chat here, which I want to make sure that we answer before we get off here. We can do this here. Our guy Swag TV wants us to build a FanDuel lineup to win. So this can't be a lineup that we expect to lose, Lofty. This is a lineup that we expect to win.
Good.
So I'm going to pull this up right here. We'll build it in the single lineup sim, and I'll throw it on screen for our guy here, Swag TV. So
while you do that, just real quickly, that people are asking us about Thanksgiving slates. I just wanted to point this out because tomorrow we are pushing back the first look show to probably 1:00 Eastern. And the reason we're doing that is because our data team is going to work very hard to get all of our data up for Thanksgiving. And we decided that talking to the data team, they can have it up by around 12:30 Eastern. We would rather do a show, Ben and myself, with data up than do it without, since it's such a short week and we've got a big, awesome Thanksgiving slate. So pointing that out, Greg, that yes, we'll have that. You and I will have our Wednesday show as always. That'll be for Thanksgiving. And then we will have Thursday, I assume 2 hours, right?
It'll just be the 1 hour on Thursday for Thanksgiving. We don't have that many guys who are going to be around.
So who's it going to be? Me and who?
Eric for Live Before Lock on the Thursday show. But yes, we will have the Thursday Live Before Lock for the NFL slate.
Okay.
So I did build out this FanDuel lineup here. So here's what we ended up getting to. We've got Christian McCaffrey in the MVP spot with Ryan Fitzgerald, Kyle Juszczyk, Rico Dowdle, Brock Purdy, and Matt Gay. And this did come out with a 99.6% sim ROI in the single lineup sim. So this is what I was able to build out over on FanDuel for Swag TV, who very passionate, all capital letters. Yes, we can do it. We did. And hopefully this will be a lineup that cashes.
There we go, baby. Appreciate you guys as always. We got Live Before Lock tonight. We got Deeper Dive Live Before Lock for NBA as well. We got a lot, man. We got a lot. Thanksgiving coming up, Black Friday football. I'm going to go get some betting content out. We'll have the perfect lineup today as well. Anything else you got going on, Greg, before we head out?
Just want to let you guys know that we are sponsored here today by DraftKings Pick 6. And if you have a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Just call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus, valid only where Pick 6 operates. See dkng.co/Pick 6 states. Void in New York and Ontario and were prohibited. Eligibility restrictions do apply. This is just one per new DraftKings customer. Your first $5 in Pick 6 sets. This is going to get you $50 issued as non-withdrawable bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Terms and conditions can be found at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. This is sponsored by DraftKings.
Bye-bye.